Look alive, National Panel. We got Flasky Jones, Woody Page, and Michael Smith. It's about to go down today. Everything, that's everything, that's everything.
Beat 'em down.
Duck, duck, oof, and vroom, zoom, boom. This defense is placed all time, and the 11 MVPs they could have had. Also, hair, pecs, and fur. Let's do this.
Oh, I love that.
Player. Hey, slow your roll. Player, you're a little too quick with that flip.
Interception.
I want to flip
It ain't
you.
so, Joe.
It's Around the Horn, presented by Guinness, part of Happy Hour. Here's Tony Reali.
Hey now. The poor Woody Page. The picks they make equal the mutes they take. You saw the big board. You know the picks. Jones and Smith had Seattle. Points for them.
Good.
You had them kind of close, so not as many points as you maybe want.
Look at
Page,
them,
of course, had the Broncos. And let's look at Flasky's all quiet. We see you there, Flasky. Come on. You had Denver, too.
You forget.
You had Denver, too. So we'll look at your minus 10 right there.
Basketball.
Smith and Jones looking as good as Namath right now. Let's go to work.
It's the first word.
All right. Not sure if you guys are familiar with how we do this show. Sometimes we ask questions like, did this team win it or that team below it? Was this more about this team or that team? We won't be doing that today. This was a beat 'em down of majestic proportions. A throwback to Super Bowls of the 80s and 90s. There's never even been a 43-8 game in NFL history. After a rout like this of the #1 offense of all time, how do you view the Seahawks team today? Start off with you, Michael Smith.
I hesitate to say it's the greatest defense of all time based on that logic of, you know, handling the best offense of all time. But there's an intriguing member of the conversation, if you will. They're not as iconic as the 85 or even 86 Bears or the 86 Giants or the 2002 Bucks with all those Hall of Famers that they had or the Steel Curtain. They haven't done it over a sustained period. You know what I mean? But just, this is one season, and they were really good this season. Definitely one of the best defenses when you consider how much of an offensive era we're in. I mean, they tackle well. They missed one tackle in this game. They shut down Peyton Manning. So they're in the conversation. But, man, I think about the 85 Bears and Lawrence Taylor's Giants. I don't see this team as on that level. But for a single-game Super Bowl performance, given who they were up against and how they performed, you got to give them all that credit.
But just by calling them the 85 Bears, Mike, you are restricting them to one season. No, when you're talking about the Bears.
I said the 86 Bears.
Giants.
And then I said the 86 Bears as well. The Bears for several years were very good. I was talking about the sustained
This was the #1 offense of all time. Woody Page, you covered them all season long. How do you view the Seahawks today?
Well, that's why Michael is sort of missing out on the point that those 85 Bears were not going up against a team that set every passing record in the history of the game. A quarterback who had just the night before been named Offensive Player of the Year and MVP for the 5th time. I think you have to mention the Seattle Seahawks as possibly the greatest one-year defensive team of all time. The way they hit the Broncos. In talking to the Seahawks afterward, they said to me they had never seen a team that flew around like we did, that hit like we did, that came to play on every play. And I thought that summed up their defense offensively. The way they worked Percy Harvin into the game early to set the tone. Even though Marshawn Lynch was being stopped, Russell Wilson was never solved by the Broncos. That as soon as he saw the passers break down, he would take off. He'd pick up the key first down. I thought it was an incredible, all-around great victory.
I'm sure you did. Unfortunately for you, you've got minus 13 points because of that victory, but that's okay. Bomani Jones, join us.
All right, the most I think that we could reasonably do is to add the Seahawks into that level of conversation.
Yeah.
We wind up recalibrating this after we decide how good guys wound up being for their careers. And so many players for the Seahawks are so young that we can't really dig into it the way we probably would. But that performance they put up, given the rules of this league, that it helped the Broncos do so much this year and have helped make offense explode so much this year. You have to look at the way that as soon as somebody caught the ball, they got hammered. They got tackled. And you talk about the 85 Bears comparison, Woody, you got to remember, they did play against a team that was kind of like the Broncos of their era, the Dolphins that year, and the Dolphins put almost 40 points on them in that game. Yeah. Nobody was going to do that to this Seattle team. That performance
So specifically, how did they do it last night, Bomani?
They got pressure with 4, and then that allowed them to hammer everybody else underneath.
Flashkey.
All I can say is this is the fewest points ever scored in the league's biggest game by the league's best offense. So I would say this is the best one-game defensive performance in NFL history. I think all the stats would prove that out, and it's amazing to me. And I want to give Pete Carroll a little bit of love here about it. After all he's been through, left USC, and people thought it would never work again in the NFL. He's not an NFL kind of coach. When you look at what he did, the team was 5-11 when he took over the Seahawks after 2009, and look what's happened since then. He's done it his way, a simple way, an energetic way. It wasn't real complicated. In fact, Richard Sherman said they even dumbed it down. It was their most simple game plan of the whole season.
And
Carroll has those guys going.
Well, I think we just got to distinguish. Are we talking about one game, which, of course, they're in the conversation, given the Broncos' level of excellence this year? We talk about one season, because Andrew Luck shred this defense early in the year. The Rams did work on this defense. I mean, you think about those steel curtain teams, 85 Bears, 86 Giants. We even brought up the 2000 Ravens for crying out loud.
But we're trying to base it on what happened last night.
For one game, they're in the conversation.
This was the Super Bowl.
Okay, one game.
All right.
Yes.
And in an offensive-minded league, a defense like this, offense wins games, defense wins championships. It's a cliche we've heard for a long time, but it proved to be true yet again last night, Woody Page. I want you to talk a little bit more about what the Broncos couldn't do.
Well, what they couldn't do is John Fox didn't prepare them for the noise. It was the loudest. I've been to 40 Super Bowls. It was the loudest I ever heard. We usually expect the corporate types just to sit back, but we see Seattle brought their fans. The Broncos did. Peyton Manning saw on the first play that noise was going to affect the game because he's making a move.
That was the first time any of you really mentioned Peyton by name. The greatest offensive season in football history, ending with a thud. Started from the top, now they're here. A lot of ink, and by ink I mean link, on Peyton's legacy today. 1-2 in the Super Bowl. Manning after said, quote, "It's not embarrassing at all." I would never use that word. The word embarrassing is an insulting word, to tell you the truth. End quote. Flashkey, we'll start with you. What will this game do for how you view Peyton Manning?
Well, the word embarrassing may be insulting, but it's absolutely true. If Peyton Manning had won this game, we were all set to say he was the greatest quarterback ever. So by him losing this game, a lot of the burden has to go on him for this game. I think his legacy took a big hit here. I think he looked lost out there from the start. He looked old. He looked like suddenly he couldn't make the adjustments. This great quarterback after a whole season, as soon as his receivers started getting hit, as soon as he started getting pressured, he looked like he was dazed. And even the Seahawks said later, but after they're up by 20 or something points, looked like all the emotion had drained out of his face.
So Plashke says legacy takes a hit, and he looked old. Bomani, do you agree with that?
Well, this much I'll say. If Peyton Manning was not embarrassed, then he's just incapable of shame. They got smoked. They only scored 8 points, and you're supposed to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. That would be pretty embarrassing to me. But I'm reluctant to say that this takes a big hit on his legacy. We've known what Peyton Manning's weaknesses have been for a long time. He is as cerebral and algorithmic a quarterback as you will see, and under optimal conditions, there's probably no one that's been better. But at this point in his career in particular, he's a dude that doesn't have a big arm, and the Seahawks knew that. And since he didn't have that big arm, they said, throw it short, and we're going to punish your guys, and that's what they did. They got pressure on him, and once that pressure came, it's not that like Peyton Manning's at a point in his career where he's really making something out of nothing. He had a year that I can't believe that he had, but he was the guy in that game that we've known that he could be from time to time. He has his greatness, but his greatness is backed up by a really weird shortcoming.
Let's bring in Woody Page here. Woody, you wrote last week that with this game, he can become the best quarterback in football history. Now, how do you view him today?
He's not that. It goes back to training camp when I went up to him and I said, Peyton, your legacy right now is greatest regular season quarterback of all time. I think that's exactly where he is, that as long as he is now 1-2 in Super Bowls, my respect for him, I will not use the word embarrassing. Humiliating, terrible, awful. It was every bad description you could possibly come up with, and Bomani's right. He looked confused. He looked discombobulated. He didn't actually look that enthused once halftime that return for a touchdown. I thought they just gave up and didn't want to play anymore.
Mike Smith, how do you view Peyton?
It's got much too large a body of work for me to take one game and it change how I look at Peyton Manning. So it doesn't change how I look at him. Let's take Eli Manning, for instance. And I often say this when people want to put him in the Hall of Fame after his second Super Bowl MVP. I said there's a difference between having a Hall of Fame resume and being a Hall of Fame player. The people who want to say Peyton Manning was going to be the greatest quarterback of all time, they will base it on his his resume if he were to get a second Super Bowl. But in terms of playing the position, I got at least 3, if not 4 or 5 guys I might be willing to put ahead of Peyton Manning. He's been great, but in terms of just playing the position, he was never up for the GOAT discussion, even with the win as far as I was concerned. Now, that said, we just finished talking about whether it's not Seattle is one of the greatest defenses of all time. So I have a hard time out of one side of my mouth saying Seattle is so great and then saying, oh, this is Peyton Manning choking. Give credit to Seattle. All quarterbacks look average and mortal.
A couple of you alluded to that first snap. You think this game's different if that snap doesn't happen and they don't go 3 and out? Or Plashke, you want to answer that?
No, because they were down 5-0. They've been down by a lot more than that before this year. No, that didn't mean it. That was just symbolic.
They was going to get boat race regardless.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
They had nothing for Seattle.
Real quick, I know we're after the horn, but does this make you question a league that's going so offensive, whether building a team with the best offense is the best way to win a Super Bowl? We've seen it with the Patriots, best offense of all time, lost to the Giants, lost them twice. Woody, you want to answer that?
Oh, I still think, though, that offenses are so far ahead of defenses that you want to go offensively, not defense.
Maybe during the regular season.
Pass rush.
Didn't look that way last night. We've been
all
we're taking a break. Buy or sell next. We're not done with the Super Bowl by a long shot. Whether MVP needed to be MVP team last night, and just how long these Seahawks can be. These Seahawks, one of the youngest champions ever. Does that mean dynasty?
Buy or sell.
For the MVP discussion, Bob Ryan had a vintage Bob Ryan tweet that wasn't just the letter Q. Look at this. As Voltaire would say, if there was no MVP award, we wouldn't have to give one. We all know the MVP is the entire C defense. They didn't give out 11. They gave out just one. Malcolm Smith, pick 6, fumble recovery, 9 tackles. So buy or sell Smith as the MVP, Plashke.
He was great, but I'm selling this. They had the perfect opportunity. They actually have a name for the defense, Legion of Boom. Just put it on the ballot. Because how do you leave off Cam Chancellor? How do you leave off Cliff Averill? There's a lot of guys. How do you leave these guys off? No, the whole defense should have won.
you'd give out, what, 4, 11? How many MVP trophies are you giving out? How many awards?
They got money. You give out 11.
I'll start it out. They got money. That's the best answer you've ever given, Plashke. Jones, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to have to sell that one. And Malcolm Smith had a really good game. There are other guys like Cam Chancellor who really played well defensively. But in a game like that, with that score, putting up 43 points, normally the MVP would go to the quarterback. I'd give that vote to Russell Wilson.
Even though the defense scored some of those points. Okay, how about you, Woody Page?
Well, actually, a lot of people in the press box agreed with Bomani, and I went, really? I would give it to everybody. I was around a Broncos team in Super Bowl 12, and they gave it to 2 defensive players. If they can give it to 2, they can give it to 11.
11,
They got the money.
Mike Smith, you going 11? Yes, we heard that.
We've had co-MVPs in Super Bowl 12. We had a losing MVP, I believe, in Super Bowl 5. We had a team come out for introductions back in Super Bowl 36 with the Patriots. Why not give it to all of them? This was a total team effort. We haven't brought up the name Percy Harvin yet. I know it was the kickoff return was in the second half.
He had a touchdown as well.
I think somebody saw that coming on Friday. I don't care if self-promotion is the maiden call of you.
Okay, the maiden call of you. He scored a touchdown. Here's your points. Hurst had a touchdown. Baldwin had a touchdown. Nobody mentioned anyone on the Seahawks defense on Friday. Where were you guys on that one? We'll move on. Russell Wilson was not the first quarterback drafted 2 years ago. He wasn't even the first quarterback drafted 2 years ago of guys in uniform yesterday. Broncos backup Brock Osweiler. Wow. He now has the most wins ever for a QB in his first 2 years and his championship. His defense, as you all said, all-time great season, and young and cheap right now. This team among the youngest to ever win the Super Bowl, right there with the Steelers in the 70s. That team became a dynasty. So you're buying dynasty potential for the Seahawks team, Bomani?
I'm buying dynasty potential for that team, but a big part of their success is how many guys they've got on the cheap. Thanks to Joe Flacco, it won't be too long before Russell Wilson is making something in the neighborhood of $20 million a year. But you notice when one guy goes down for this team, another inexpensive part just rolls over and nobody can tell the difference.
So you're kind of buying then, maybe? Woody Page, how about you?
No, I'm not buying dynasty. I don't think we're going to see that happen in the National Football League like those old Steelers of the 70s, the 49ers. Even though the Patriots acted like they were dynasty, then they lost 2 Super Bowls. I don't think it's going to happen with a tough NFC.
Well, they did get there, but I will buy dynasty potential for these Seahawks. You're talking about a dynasty, you got to start at the top with the emperor, or co-emperors in this case, if there's such a thing. John Schneider and Pete Carroll, man, they work on such the same page, the way they draft, the way they find undrafted guys. I think 19 out of the 53-man roster were undrafted free agents, so I think they can sustain this in the salary cap.
Plashke.
Yeah, I think they have a great chance. They have the coach, they have the quarterback, and you have something interesting. They have the home field. This home field's not going anywhere. I mean, that's going to be a hard place to play for the immediate future. That could be
about the quarterback. I know Bomani
thought
he should have been MVP last night. Could we possibly be entering the Russell Wilson era of the NFL, Plaschke? I know you like him.
I really like. I don't know if he's ever going to have that kind of role in that team where he'll be that kind of guy. But I think he'll be the kind of guy that's not going to let him lose. Yeah.
Smith got a mute for the mating call, the self-promotion earlier. Bomani Jones, and buy or sell this answer, that gets you a mute as well. We'll move on. The weather worked out by about 10 hours. Snow today for New York. Trip home for everybody sloppy. Woody, when are you getting home? Trip to the game for some, a mess as well. Reports of several people collapsing in Secaucus. Been there, done that. In an overcrowded train station. Giants president John Mara said before the game he wants the Super Bowl back at MetLife Stadium. Buy or sell another outdoor cold weather Super Bowl, Woody?
I'm going to buy the way that New York and New Jersey handled the Super Bowl. They did an incredible job, and I want to reach out and salute them for that. But I'm going to sell it ever coming back here or any of these cold weather cities. Put it in New Orleans every year, or at least in Miami, New Orleans.
The weather wasn't a problem until today, though. I mean, it was 50 degrees last night. It didn't affect the game, which is the most important thing. I'll buy it in a cold weather city, maybe just not two cities, or two states even have it in New York and New Jersey. I wouldn't mind it in Denver. Woody, I'd come out and kick it with you, man, if it was out there.
Plaschke, how about you?
No. They got so lucky here. 10 hours from disaster. Are you kidding me? And all the problems with the trains. They ought to just leave it while they're count their blessings, get out of town, never come back.
Jones.
Yeah, no, you got to sell this. You can't keep having these Super Bowls that require you to look in the Farmer's Almanac and try to figure out if it's going to be buried in snow. Like, the margin of error on this was 10 hours, and they got this lucky. Keep it in warm weather places. People like warm weather.
I don't know. I think snow at the game would have been the best thing ever. I think they got unlucky for about 10 hours. Woody, you're going to be stuck in New York for the next 3 days, but that's how it is. It was a great season. Woodrow didn't end the way you wanted. What's your last word?
Well, as you said, as they tell the comedy crowds here, you've been a great crowd. I'm going to be here all week.
All right, Gerald. Great seeing you. Plaschke, Jones, Smith, lightning round next. Coming up, Bruno Hair, Name It Fur, Chili Pepper Pecs. First two from the 50s, the other two in their 50s. Put! Jones 20, Smith 19, Plaschke. You've done some work to get to 7, but you still pick the Broncos. Let's go, lightning round. I saw some mixed reviews on Bruno and the Peppers at halftime. I must have gotten a different feed. I loved it, but it was just me. That was the halftime entertainment. Shirts or no shirts. Shirts and skins. Pre-game entertainment. Nothing more entertaining than Broadway Joe in fur at 49 degrees. To toss the coin toss before Terry McCauley was ready with the heads tails. What's standing out to you from yesterday's entertainment, Plaschke?
As much as I love watching my friend Michael Balzery in his Laker yellow tennis shoes, it was all about the fur coat. The fur coat should have gotten an MVP vote. He walked out there, and everybody went crazy. And standing next to him, Phil Simms looked like he was American Gothic standing next to him as he's out there. It was Broadway Joe, the most famous professional NFL guy in that city, running that town
Jones,
again.
What did you find most entertaining?
Now, look, you got to be a bad man to be the headliner and start off your show coming down doing a drum solo. But Bill's right. It's about that fur coat. There's only one reason to wear a fur coat in 49-degree weather, because somebody needs to see you in your fur coat. Your neighbor is a player.
Yeah, but did he have a pinky ring, though, Bo? I don't know. I know he had a Super Bowl ring on, but he was missing the pinky ring. But that said, I got to go with the halftime show. I was entertained. I think the problem with the people, to your point, Tony, earlier, who were hating on Bruno Mars, that they was put in such a bad mood by the quality or lack thereof of the actual football game. Most people are not watching the Super Bowl to be entertained by a fur coat or by halftime. They watch it for football, and it was a
still mixed reviews, it seemed, for Bruno Mars. Essentially, for me, I mean, he's a great performer. I mean, Bomani, I know you were impressed with how he was as a performer, but the songs he was playing, Heaven and Treasure, I mean, Heaven sounds like The Police, Treasure sounds like Earth, Wind, and Fire, then he's got James Brown.
And he got horns, and the horns were killing it. People just like to hate.
I mean, I felt like, and then with the Chili Peppers, you're bringing in like 5 different genres of music in 7 minutes. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Jones, Smith, we knew it was going to happen. Plaschke. Next to go. What's the last word?
I am flying to Russia tonight to cover the Olympics. So for the next 3 weeks, when you hear someone ask a dumb question to a snowboard press conference,
that's going to be
me. Yeah. That would be me.
Well, first off, be safe. Second off, enjoy yourself. Third off, find that bathroom with the 2 stalls and see what's going down.
I'm praying about not going to that bathroom.
Eat well, Plaschke, at the Olympics. Showdown next. Jones, Smith. 2 enter, but only 1 will leave. And straight ahead, 1 coach, 2 dumps. Sounds like we were just talking about. And 61 commercials. How many winners? How many? 5, 10? I like a few. Heroes Welcome made me cry. 4. Bo, Monty Jones, Michael Smith, 2 quick showdowns and 30 seconds of fades to the winner. Good luck to you both. Showdown number 1, the commercials from last night. America the Beautiful, Dolly the Llama, Big Dog, Little Body, Radio Shack loves the 80s, Bruce and Fred, a hug for Honda, Have Mercy, Fuller House, and Tebow. Which commercial won the Super Bowl for you, Bo?
Hey, man, I got to go with Tebow. You have to give him credit for his ability to laugh at himself in this situation while he tries to work himself back into the league. And, hey, get yourself some extra work. Working here and you're moonlighting. That's how you do it.
The movie trailer for the new Transformers film, Dinobots, me, Grimlock. I'm in. I'm there. They won.
Movie trailer. I'm not sure if the movie trailer is going to fly as a commercial. We'll give the point to Monty Jones, Pete Carroll, Gatorade, dump. Video graphically perfect. Orange in the background, orange in the foreground. Then a minute later, hit him again with the yellow-green stuff. This Pant Vegas prop bet's about Gatorade color. By the way, I don't see Gatorade color. Fair or foul, Michael?
I think it was fair. First of all, you got to be thorough. A lot of times the first time you miss, so they wanted to make sure he was soaked. And secondly, one of 3 coaches now to win a national championship and an NFL title.
No. That was foul. They were being greedy. You don't do it to him twice. They should have taken the Gatorade over to John Fox and poured it on him. That way he could feel like a winner, too.
No, you don't do that, Bomani Jones. We're getting a split score here. Tiebreakers going to the man who said Percy Harvin would be a difference maker in the show. Smith, you lost a point for the self-promotion earlier. You get it back now. Take your face.
I appreciate it. I also want to give some props to Richard Sherman. Give him one last shout-out since he was a talker 2 weeks of Super Bowl build-up. Who would have thought that he would be the one caping up to defend Peyton Manning? He did it on Twitter to some rowdy Seahawks fans last night. He also said today that, hey, I was hurt and I felt somebody reach out and touch me, and it turned out to be Peyton Manning. What a classy guy to check on Richard Sherman. So props to Sherman for continuing to show people who he really is.
Wow. And we are out. No time. See you tomorrow.